This video is sponsored by Iniba.com, a new gaming marketplace bringing you the hottest deals with up to 70% discount. Get cheap workout products as well as other games. Click on the link below and use code DORON to get 3% off. Hello guys, this is Doron's Movies, and today I will be talking about that famous duel between Illidan and Arthas. What would have happened had Arthas been defeated, and how would the entire Warcraft universe change with this one single event? So, without further ado, let's get into the lore. After the defeat of the Burning Legion and Archimonde at Mount Hyjal, Kil'jaeden was concerned that his minion, the Lich King, had betrayed him. He got in touch with Illidan and sent him on a mission to destroy the leader of the Scourge. Through a brilliant plan, Illidan used the Eye of Sargeras to attack the Frozen Throne from a distance. The reason it was so smart was because the Lich King had literally no defense and he would have been destroyed that day had Malfurion not intervened to save the nature. Ner'zhul was significantly weakened and his power was leaking. To make it even worse for him, Kil'jaeden was set on destroying him now, so in a desperate attempt, Lich King tasked Arthas to reach the Frozen Throne and to merge with him as soon as possible. Arthas rushed to Icecrown, but as he had arrived, the servant of Kil'jaeden was already there, Illidan together with Kil'tas and the Naga. After an intense battle, the Scourge had won and Arthas had reached the Frozen Throne. However, at the entrance, Illidan had awaited and the two dueled. Illidan, with newfound demonic power, nearly won. He was easily besting him in the duel, but surprisingly, Arthas quickly took advantage of an opening, slicing the Demon Hunter across the chest. The Death Knight reached the top and merged with Ner'zhul, while Illidan, wounded, had retreated. Subsequently, he fled to Outland and continued his campaign. Now, with the Illidan novel, we know the backstory, we know that Illidan was always keen on destroying the Burning Legion, and didn't really mind working as a double agent, and seeing almost all the things he had done were ultimately to save Azeroth from the demonic army. However, how would Warcraft be any different had Arthas been defeated that day? Well, the most obvious event would be the lack of Arthas and his death as a character within the series, which would completely eliminate the subsequent events in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. Illidan would reach the Frozen Throne, and there he could do, in my opinion, three things. First, destroy the Lich King, which would be the most likely event. Second, become the Lich King, taking the crown. And lastly, absorb the crown as he did with the Skull of Gul'dan. With the last event, I think the same outcome would be as with the first one, he would only be stronger. Now, what would happen after is really hard to tell. First off, with the Shadowlands and the connection to the Helm, it being destroyed could trigger what happened recently. However, as Kil'jaeden was the one that created the Lich King, he was 100% aware of what would happen to Ner'zhul, as many speculate that he tied it to the Death Realm. Maybe there would be no Shadowlands Rift, or maybe there would be one, and Kil'jaeden was completely aware of that, seeing it as another way to weaken Azeroth. But let's just say that there is no Shadowlands stuff, and that there was just no Lich King if this occurred. Well, Illidan would most likely continue to serve Kil'jaeden and would find some other way to work against him and the Legion, but seeing as the events would be completely different, it is really hard to speculate how exactly. However, with no Lich King, the world would drastically change. First off, his ally Kil'tas would most likely return to Quel'Thalas to cleanse the remnants of the Scourge, and it is entirely possible that the Forsaken might not be able to form as they did, and might have even been wiped out. Quel'Thalas could be restored and the undead would eventually be defeated. There would be no Northern campaign, the Drakari Empire wouldn't be driven to extinction, which could make the Trolls stronger in the future, and Draenor Saurfang would still be alive. Also, if Kil'tas returned to his kingdom and didn't have as much presence as he did on Draenor, the Draenei would literally have no reason to escape, and they wouldn't crash land on Azeroth as they did, changing the history drastically, as we would never meet Velen most likely, or we would in just a different way, possibly during another Burning Legion invasion. However, the death of Arthas doesn't guarantee that the Blood Elves wouldn't go to Outland, as after all they were searching for power due to the destruction of the Sunwell. Still, breaking the hierarchy of the Scourge might have modified this to a significant extent. Now, an alternate reality is that Illidan could have taken the crown and became the Lich King. At this point, it is just a wild speculation. He could have had the same storyline as Arthas, but in my opinion, as he was not just a feeble human, but instead a 10,000-year-old night elf that went through the demon hunter training and mastered it, and I do believe he might have been able to actually control this power and to channel it to work against Kil'jaeden and the Burning Legion. What would happen here is a completely different World of Warcraft, maybe with even the Scourge being used for good, and possibly even as a playable race, and we would fight with them against the Burning Legion. One thing though that would be certain is that had Arthas been killed, his storyline would have ended, which in itself would drastically change the story. Just with that, his future victims wouldn't really be victims, and they would modify the universe in their own small way. While this duel wasn't visually the best, when you look at all the possibilities, it affected the storyline and the current events in a very significant way. Thank you for watching. Do check out who would win, Arthas or Sylvanas in a duel by clicking on the screen, and also check out the second channel, Doran's Academy, for videos on real world history and science. See you next time.